Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming. For those who don't know me, my name is Maria Kaliambou and I'm senior lecturer at the Hellenic Studies program. And it's my great delight to see so many of you here for what promises to be an engaging panel. I would like to extend my gratitude to our beloved General Consul Iphigenia Kanara, who came from New York amidst a very busy schedule. Thank you so much for coming, Ms. Kanara. So this panel discussion will focus on the repatriation of cultural artifacts, particularly the Parthenon Marbles. I will be very fast because we have so many interesting things to say, and I will be very brief in my introductions. The structure of the panel is as follows. First, Professor Stampolidis, General Director of the Acropolis Museum and Emeritus Professor of Classical Archaeology at the University of Crete, will provide us an overview of the current situation regarding the Parthenon Marbles. Then Antonia Bartoli next to him, who is Curator of Provenance Research at the Yale University Art Gallery. And then Marilena Christodoulou next to her, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Financial Operating Officer at the Rubin Museum of Art in New York. They will offer us insights from their respective museums, so Yale Art Gallery and Rubin Museum in New York, so to broaden our understanding of artifact repatriation and in different institutional contexts. And then our professors, Millet Geifman, Professor of Classics and History of Art, and Costas Arkolakis, Professor of Economics, will initiate the conversation and questions and comments. And of course, the discussion will conclude with an open floor with all of you, hopefully with great questions. Without further ado, because we have so many things to cover, I will give the floor to Professor Stampolidis. Thank you so much for coming. I will introduce you briefly, very briefly, not as extensive as I introduced you yesterday.
They have heard yesterday. It's okay, it's up to you.
Very briefly.
What Costas says.
Yes.
Shall I do
What
that?
Maria says.
Yes. For those who have not been yesterday, I will offer a very brief introduction, which is really a very brief and unfair summary to what Professor Stampolidis has done. He's the General Director of the Acropolis Museum. He studied at Aristotle University of Thessaloniki and the University of Bonn, and has served as Dean of the School of Philosophy and Chair of the Department of History and Archaeology, University of Crete. A prolific scholar, he has authored 50 books and 115 articles. He directed the Museum of Cycladic Art for 25 years in Athens and led major excavations, including Eleftheria, about which we had the talk yesterday. He curated landmark exhibitions and is pioneer in connecting ancient and modern art. He has received 14 honors, and including 3 Grand Crosses from Greece, Italy, and Spain for his cultural contributions. Very brief, and yes, thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us, and we are looking forward.
Thank you for the invitation anyway. I thought I was going to speak for an hour, but now I have to compress everything
Please do otherwise.
in about 15, 20 minutes. Anyway, chapter 1. In order to solve a crime, it is always necessary to have an eyewitness. And during the Parthenon's looting, we have the written testimony of one such witness. You can read, as you can see it there, some parts of his testimony. I will like to add, with his words, it is indeed impossible to suppress the feelings of regret which must arise in the breast of every traveler who has seen these temples before and since their late dilapidation. Nor have I any hesitation in declaring that the Athenians in general, nay, even the Turks themselves, did lament the ruin that was committed. So, the important thing to say is that this is a British traveller, Edward Dodwell. Chapter, you can see here from his sketches how they dilapidate everything what was surviving by the time and put it down to go to Old Albion in England. Chapter 2. They divided my cloths by casting lots. The title is from the chapter that comes from the Gospel, referring to the dividing of Jesus Christ's garments, which the soldiers shared among them. In her recently published book, Andrea Marcolongo states, "It may be that regarding the issue of the returns, all eyes are turned to England, but nonetheless, France cannot be indifferent in the problem. Today, when you visit the Louvre, you can see the so-called Parthenon gallery and all the lootings there taken from the Parthenon. A plaster cast, you can see here in the middle, is one of the masterpieces, you can see it, done by Fauvel in 1787. So that is the cast, the best cast we have from the 18th century, from the Parthenon blocks, and look how it is today. You can see this man is this man here. You can see his stick there and so on. And this vertical line is nothing else but the sewn to divide the huge block so to transfer it easily to England. The abduction of beauty. Let me have it out. It's better. So today one can see.
You want to stand maybe?
It's up to you. Yes. You can see the western part of the frieze of the Parthenon in the museum of the new museum of Acropolis, and it is standing on a height of about 2 meters 30 centimeters, so that everybody, all visitors, can enjoy it. It is in perfect condition, cleaned by laser points, not with brushes as they did in the British Museum during the 30s and 40s. And you can see also if a block falls from the frieze because of the bombardment of Morosini in 1687, or by an earthquake and so on, you see how all the pieces are splitted here and there as well. And here you can see how is the weathering of all these centuries up on the frieze of the Parthenon as it stood. What Elgin, that means Lusgeri, Hand, and the rest have done is what you see here. This is an original block, which is 65 centimeters width, and he has chopped them off, chiseled, destroyed them, and there is no relief right now in the British Museum more than 23, 24 centimeters. It was because the ships were not steam ships, and he wanted to have as less as possible the burden. You can see also here how he is sewing the first part, the relief part, in 1801, and we know from his letters to Lord Elgin that he wanted desperately and urgently to have these huge sews so that he can cut them down as he did here and there. So you can see how they are split. Can you see?
Yeah, we see.
And sometimes if the block was very, very heavy and steady, he had some tools following the veins of the marble. So he got this part and he left the lower part, the part behind, today in the museum. You can see this is the part left, and we have this in cast and plaster, which is actually a shadow, it's a ghost of the original. So that was taken, and let's see how it looks like today. Originals here and there, and plasters in between in the new Acropolis Museum. This is the new Acropolis Museum, the archaic gallery. It's actually like a garden of statues, archaic and classical statues. And you can see also, we will come back soon, how they look like facing the Parthenon in a distance of 280 meters, because they must be protected from the pollution. You cannot put them back there, as you understand. And let's go what we have done until today. I'm not going to say what the poems of Lord Byron have said, what the Greeks have done after the liberation in 1827, 34, 42, even Cavafy in 1891 was writing things that they should be repatriated. And of course we go to the 20th century when Melina Mercouri in 1982-83, she started this campaign for the return of the marbles. I don't mind to say the marbles or sculptures, because marble in Greek language is marmaro, and marmaro comes from the verb marmero, that means I can reflect the sunshine. Where else than in Athens? Anyway, until from 1982-83 until September 2021, as you see, we got only recommendations through the 2 yearly assemblies in Paris in the UNESCO assembly. But on September 29th, we had the decision, after 38 years of recommendations, a decision that declares it is right, legal, ethical, and intergovernmental. The issue is between the two governments, how to negotiate. So, the reunification of the sculptures, 10 fragments from our National Museum, because sometimes, you know, even museums in the same city or in the same country, they deny to give the pieces back. But I say, how can I go abroad and ask for the return of the marbles when you have 10 pieces in the National Museum? So on the 3rd of January 2022, the 10 fragments came back, and you can see there how they were put in their original position. Here is the Prime Minister, Mrs. Mendoni, the Minister of Culture, and so on and so on. By the 10th of 2022, the deposit of the Fagan fragment at the Acropolis Museum from the Antonino Salinas Museum in Palermo came back not as a loan, because you cannot have as a loan something that belongs to you. And when I say to you, I don't mean the Greeks I mean the Parthenon. The Parthenon for the humanity, not for the Greeks. The Parthenon is still there. So, that was done with a special contract saying that it is deposited in the Museum of Acropolis as long before we come to the end solution, as the Italians say, to be there per sempre, forever. So, you can see how they left from Piraeus and through Sicily they went to Old Albion. I would like to show you this itinerary because I do believe, but it's a matter of research of course, that Fagan, who was the consul of the British Empire in Sicily, was a very good friend of Elgin, and that this piece landed there because of their friendship, and in this case, this is the first, in quotation marks, Elgin piece to come back forever to Greece. On May 22, the ratification of the UNESCO decision of September 2021, and on the 17th of May, the decision of the Sicilian authorities for the permanent return of the Fagan fragment in the Acropolis Museum. By the 4th of June, that means not in 4 years, but in 4 months, we have this piece from the Palermo Museum back and reunified in the Acropolis Museum. So, what does it mean? It means if there is a will, there is a way. On September 2022, the decision of Pope Francis to donate back to the Church of Greece, that means the Orthodox Church, and on the 7th of March, the signing of the agreement with the Vatican Museums to have all these 3 pieces, the horse, part of the frieze, and part of a metope back to Athens. And on the 10th of March, the fragments arrived from the Vatican Museum to the Acropolis, and the 24th of March, the permanent reunification of the 2 fragments from the Vatican Museum. These are the heads here, parts of the frieze, the cardinals and the authorities of Greece, Mrs. Mendoni and the others. It is very important to say that I do not regret I have given the permission to Andrea Marcolongo to stay overnight at the Parthenon Gallery. She wrote a book from her experience. She says something unbelievable. For the first time, I quote her words, for the first time I felt I belonged to my country. That means to Italy. Because by then, Italy has nothing of the Parthenon in its territory. So she felt for the first time Italian because they have done their duty. So, in June 23, the participation of the Acropolis Museum in the UNESCO Roundtable discussion, new forms of agreement and cooperation in the field of return and restitution of cultural property, the Fagan fragment was the best of the agreement and cooperations in the field of return and restitution. And on the 26th of April 24, that means 200 years after the death of Parthenon, I have done a small exhibition, in the foyer of the Acropolis Museum to show exactly the lies of Elgin. When everything was sewn and chiseled and so on, Elgin had not been in Athens in 1801. His passport is here, is an official Sultan Firman that gives him the permission in summer 1802 first to visit Athens.
Difficult
No.
for people outside. Is it on?
I hope so. Can you hear me? Okay. So, the second firman you can see in 1810 is the actual passport of Lord Byron. Although there are two different sultans, you can see the type of the official firman giving them the permission to visit Athens. What Elgin and Lusgeri and the others presented in 1816 in front of the committee in London, a lettera. That means a letter translated in Italian, you can see it here, that has nothing to do with the tugra, that means the official stamp of the Sultan, and they claimed that it was the translation of a lost firman. Okay, I said, let's suppose that this is a real translation. What does it mean? It says there, you can make scaffoldings, you can go up, you can design, you can even make plasters of the originals. So, if Elgin had the original permission, why he needed the plasters? This is a very good question. You can see that here as well. And on the 24th session of the UNESCO Intergovernmental Committee for Promoting the Return of Cultural Property to its countries of origin or its restitution in case of illicit appropriation, a Turkish colleague, Zeynep Boz, said, after years and decades of research, there is no such firman in the Ottoman archives. End of it. So, the continuation. This is very important to understand. This frieze is 160 meters long and 1 meter and 4 centimeters height. And you can see there youths, about 380 figures, human figures, and 200 animals for the sacrifice and so on and so on. You can see it here. Of course, horses and charioteers, and again, cavalry, other youths, but also mature men of all classes of the Athenian Periclean democracy, as you can see here, and women. In the mid of the 5th century BC, in a man's world, women are participating there, which is very important and shows what was their inclusion in the democracy of Athens, classical Athens. You can see them. This is the slab that is now in the Louvre Museum. You can see them here as well, many women, not a few. And I will go quickly to talk about the beauty of the frieze. You can see even the veins of the horses, all the details. Look the way the horse is bending down to his master, and how you can even see after 2,500 years the talk of the call of this man to the cavalry to go on the procession of the Panathenaics. And something very important for the topography, because many things are said and published about the Black Athena or whatever. I will show you something you will never notice. This is Artemis, this is the Phaegon fragment, and this is Aphrodite showing something to her son. This is Eros. These are the wings of the Eros, and an umbrella covering his head because his flesh is very soft. So what is he showing to her son? If you go to the actual spot where this slab stood on the Parthenon, you understand she is showing him the parade of the procession coming up to celebrate the birthday of Athena. So you can understand that the gods you have seen on the eastern part of the frieze on the Parthenon, this scene was taking place not on the Olympus. She has called them where she dwells in her house in the Parthenon in order to celebrate her birthday. So this is it. You can see how the procession was coming up to the Acropolis. And something you will never see if I don't show it to you. This is a cavalryman in his attire, and here is something you cannot see, but I will try to show it to you. This is a Medusa head, chin, lips, eyes, nose, and so on and so on. You can see it there as well. So, even if it was painted, if you cannot recognize it right now in 2 meters height, how can you look at it in a height of 12 meters? That means here, behind the metopiece, a man is almost a height of these two pieces of the column, and in the history of ideas, you have to understand that until the construction of the Parthenon, all the temples in mainland Greece, in Sicily, southern Italy, Asia Minor and so on, all of them on the pediments, the metopies, the friezes, they always depicted only mythical scenes. For the first time, Pericles, Phidias, and their collaborators, they elevate their own presence and their constitution not for the eyes of the people, but for the eyes of the gods. This is the important thing. They were very keen, of course, because there was always an opposition, still is in Greece. It's not only the government, it's not only Pericles, there were oppositions as well. They would think about it as if it was a hubris, that means an insult. So he puts it there. Imagine, let's say, in a Catholic church or in an Orthodox church, to have instead of Jesus and the apostles and so on, representations of a parade with soldiers of today. So, this is very important to understand. And I have a question. Doesn't work?
Maybe don't know.
No. It's better. I try to speak loudly. In 1993, that means end of the 20th century, this slab, this grave stele actually, of the end of the 5th century BC, was found in Braubron, in Attica. And my professor, Professor Despinis, saw this piece in an exhibition in the Metropolitan Museum. He said, come on, these are fitting to each other. After negotiations, the Greek government got back the piece in 2008. That means in the 21st century. And we discussed with the owners that we are not going to sue them because they bought it bona fide. That means they're good-willing, if you want. So, end of the story. And I have a question. This is the lower part from Attica, and this is from the New York exhibition, Metropolitan Museum. This is a part, the lower part of the frieze of the northern side, and this is the cast of the British Museum. So, I would like to ask you, international law protected Greece for the return of the New York Metropolitan Museum piece. Why it does not happen with this piece in the British Museum? Because it is said international law cannot protect an individual, a citizen of any country, if illegally has exported pieces from the material culture of any country. So, this is a good question, I think. Last but not least, I will refer to a poem of Seferis, Like Time Without an Opening in It, by the king of Assini. There is also another argument nowadays. As you know, the Acropolis Museum, you can see here, this is the lower part, this is the first floor, and the third floor looking to the Parthenon. Beneath, under this museum, which was inaugurated in 2009, there have been excavations, extent excavations beneath, and now we have a museum since last June here and here and here as well, light, symposia, religious items, and the best portrait of Aristotle with his nose, and an empress, Evdokia. Athenais was her first name when she was pagan and then converted to Christianity. And I would like to say, in these excavations, what we have done is to show to the people that the best way to see things is not only by aesthetics in a museum. It is by experience, experiential way of looking at things. What does it mean? We have started to collect all the pieces that we can find here and there, and little tiny pieces to have the integrity of the whole, as you can see it here and there as well, and here and here. We try to put them in order, but about 7-10 centimeters protruding from the originals, because we expect that when the British Museum is going to give them back, we put them 10 centimeters protruding to say that these are coming from the British Museum. What is important is that in any country, in the best museum of the world, if you can put them by LED light or whatever, you will never have the light of the sun or of the night, the moonlight or whatever. You do not have the fragrances of the Athenian environment as you will have it in Athens, and you can look from there. Here is the museum, and here is the Parthenon. Look how it looks like. They are corresponding as I have shown it to you, and I leave you to decide what is wrong and what is right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, wonderful. Before we decide what is wrong, I think we do know what is right, but let's deliberate a little bit. I would like to invite Antonia Bartoli from the Yale University Art Gallery to offer us her perspective of our museum here at Yale.
Sure.
Antonia, thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Professor. It's really it's such a privilege to have this opportunity to engage with and learn from you.
Maybe before we start,
welcome.
would you like to come in, because I see you're struggling to listen before we start with Antonia.
Please, there are, you can sit here.
Yes. Yes, Nick. Yeah. And all the rest. Yes, please, don't be shy. There is here some. The other Nick, maybe you want to come in front so that the rest. Well, he was sitting. Excellent. All the students on the side. Yes, bravo. Thank you. Yes, come in, yes, on the rest so that you can hear. Yes. All right, Antonia, sorry.
Okay, no, sure, of course. Thank you as well, my fellow panelists, Costas, Valette, Marilena. So I'll just, I hope that students, visitors, Yale community are familiar with the Yale University Art Gallery. If not, just a few words about us. So we are one of 4 museums or collecting institutions at the university. We steward over 300,000 objects. We are a global or universal collection. The art that we care for dates from the ancient times really to the present day and comes from across the globe. When it comes to discussions around repatriation, the return of an object to its country, to its nation, to its community of origin, or more broadly, restitution, the physical return of an object to a former owner, we can't speak about this without speaking about provenance research. Provenance research is a fundamental line of art historic inquiry that conventionally traces the ownership history of an object from the time of its creation to the present day. And we can also say more broadly, it tracks its transfers, its movements throughout time of space, its biography. It can shed light on function, condition, value, authentication, a whole range of information about an object and its life. But for our purposes, we're really thinking about provenance discoveries that can form the basis of a restitution or repatriation claim. Provenance discoveries can tell us that an object has been lost, looted, transferred illicitly throughout its history. So although this work historically at the gallery has always been done by our curators, 5 years ago in 2020, we really strengthened our commitment to this work, and we've developed policies, processes, procedures around provenance research. And this is focused on 3 key areas. One is acquisitions and loans, the second is permanent collection research, and the third area is access and engagement. In terms of our our acquisitions and loans, we proactively research the ownership history, conduct due diligence, gather as much information as possible about the objects entering our collection. We consider the legality of acquiring. We don't want to bring in objects that have claims of ownership history or that are being acquired in contravention to international law, to national law. We also consider the ethics of our acquisition. In terms of our permanent collection research, we're retroactively understanding what we care for, where it comes from. Especially in the past 5, 10, 15 years, the provenance research field has really exploded. And we're now understanding that there is a significant greater amount of material available around our collection, whether it's through the opening up of archives, whether it's through scholarship, whether it's through digital initiatives. This provenance research on our permanent collection, it has uncovered a myriad of histories across all curatorial areas, but we've really focused our inquiry on what we sort of categorize as higher risk areas, categories of objects that are known to have been at higher risk for being stolen, for being lost, for illicit transfers. And this has focused on antiquities and archaeological property from the Mediterranean region, from the ancient world. It has focused on art from Central, South America, South Asia, Southeast Asia, West Africa. The second area in terms of permanent collection research is Nazi-era provenance research, conducting research on objects that we know or that we suspect were in continental Europe between the years 1933 and 1945 and changed hands. We have pursued research on NAGPRA, the Native American Graves Protection Repatriation Act, the only federal legislation that mandates collection discovery and identifying funerary objects, sacred objects, ceremonial objects that originated from Native North American indigenous tribes. Finally, we've also investigated objects from regions around the world that were colonized in the 19th, 20th century and changed hands. The final area of provenance research that we've been working on is access and engagement, thinking about where this information lives and how we're sharing it with the public, the Yale community, the wider museum, and scholarly community. We do share our entire collection online. It's fully searchable on our collections page. You can search provenance as well, and we share the provenance information that we know. It's consistently, constantly being updated as new information comes in and is verified. And it is this work in the past 5 years in these 3 key areas that has led to restitutions or repatriations. Since 2020, we've had 4 object groups restituted or repatriated, and these really represent sort of the whole range of collecting and also concerns within a collection of our nature. In 2022, we repatriated a European painting to the Republic of Austria. This was an acquisition, and research showed that it had been lost from the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna during the Second World War, and it had never been returned. That same year, we repatriated a temple sculpture, a goddess, to Nepal. Provenance research on this then permanent collection item showed that it had been stolen in the late 1970s, and it had similarly never been returned to its community, to the country of origin. Shortly thereafter, and this is something that we're seeing now a lot within the landscape of American art museums, in part as a result of the access that we provide to our collection, we were approached by law enforcement. We were presented with evidence that showed that 13 objects in our collection constituted stolen property. So we worked with law enforcement, transferred the objects over to them, and they were subsequently repatriated to their countries of origin in South and Southeast Asia. The final repatriation, which we've done, was under NAGPRA, 8 burial objects that were identified as part of permanent collection research. They were repatriated to a tribe in the southwest of the U.S. I think, one of the things that I was sort of reflecting on after your statement, the Parthenon Marbles have such a longer history. They go back so far in time, and I think compared somewhat, I don't want to generalize, there is more known about their ownership history, but you were speaking yet that we're still understanding those transfers, reconstructing those histories, thinking about sort of, that perspective and similar objects that might be contested within European museums. In art museums, these things might have been handed down to us, not 1 or 2 owners removed, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're really trying to reconstruct these histories. So, this provenance research, it really, it really is required to move forward and to even be able to engage in conversations around restitution and repatriation. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Antonia. It was very good to know what the Yale Art Gallery has done so far. Things that are not known, right? You don't tell us.
Well, I will add to that. We do, this was just recent within the past 6 months, in addition to our collection being fully searchable, we do share those ownership resolutions. All those objects have remained on our collection site. We include photography, we include details around the ownership history. Usually within the art museum space, this information might be presented with a press release, but we've opted, in part out of transparency, ethical accountability, to share these objects, but also with the understanding that we're a research institute and that, reading a press release, you don't gather a lot of information about the objects and what happened to them. So we share this in the hopes that, it might be helpful for another museum, for a nation, for private individuals or claimants. So all that information can be found if you look for it.
Thank you so much, Antonia. Yes. Now I would like to invite Marilena Christodoulou, the Deputy Executive Director and Chief Financial and Operating Officer at the Rubin Museum of Art in New York. Marilena was part of the founding team that established the museum 22 years ago, built around the Himalayan art collection of Donald and Shelley Rubin. Marilena, throughout her tenure, has overseen all operational, administrative, financial, development, and marketing functions, essentially everything except art itself.
Exactly.
So, Marilena,
Exactly.
thank you. Give us
So as Maria mentioned, first of all, I'm not a curator or an arts historian, so I'm really humbled to be in this distinguished company here. I'm really a business person, but for the last 25 years, I was part of the creation of this incredible adventure of creating a new museum. And it is the subject of provenance research and repatriation is such an important and critical subject. And as Antonia mentioned also, the Mediterranean and Asia, Southeast Asia, prime areas where these questions, arise. Actually, our executive director, Yorit Brishki, was invited by you, right, to speak at the Yale Provost office last year about repatriation and provenance. The Rubin Museum is a global museum. We put a lot of emphasis on the word global. Global museum dedicated to presenting Himalayan art and its insights. The collection, of course, has grown a lot through acquisitions and so forth. Consists of over 4,000 objects, and it's paintings, sculptures, ritual items, photographs, also multimedia works. The objects are from the Tibetan Plateau, so it shows you the variety of the origin from the Tibetan Plateau, but from culturally related areas in northern India, Nepal, Bhutan, Mongolia, China, so throughout Asia, really. After 20 years, and I'm saying this because of the focus on the global aspect, after 20 years of being New York City-based traditional museum, and after having gone through this adventure of creating a new museum, I mean, who creates a new museum? I mean, some people do, actually, very wealthy people, right? But we completely transitioned in the fall of 2024 into a new model of a really decentralized global museum. And we call ourselves now a museum without walls. What we did is we closed our physical galleries in New York, our exhibition galleries basically in New York City, and do no longer present on-site programmatic activities. We're out in the world. And we don't say international, because that means we're national and then we go global. So we have dedicated all of our resources to bring more art to more people in more places. And how do we do that? It's partnerships, collection sharing with other museums, basically traveling exhibitions and installations, and we're trying to go to Greece right now, so hopefully we will, and installations, interactive experiences, most importantly, digital content, which, after COVID, there was a lot of demand and very successful reception for digital content from Arts Museum, educational initiatives, and also supporting contemporary artists and researchers who engage in Himalayan art. So that's an unusual model. It's redefining what a museum means in the 21st century. I mean, there's other models as well, but it makes the question of where the art goes, who has access to the art, and who does it belong to, even more critical. And about repatriation, the Rubin Museum, of course, strongly opposes trafficking of any stolen or looted art or cultural items, and we have never knowingly acquired any such disputed art. But of course, if you look at, if you hear people talk about art, it's always stolen, somebody stole it. But the truth is not exactly like that. You have to go back in the history, in the provenance, and really see what happened to each individual piece of art. We're not all thieves, in the Arts Museum. Some people are. We have launched a very large-scale proactive effort in the last 5 years to research the provenance of every single piece in our collection. And we have allocated additional financial resources, of course, to this effort, and it's directed by our Director of Curatorial Administration and Collections. And we have also added a position for provenance research. In cases where we determined that an object was unlawfully obtained, either through our own investigation or other parties' investigation, we have helped facilitate its safe return, and we have had a couple also, as you know. In January 2022, we transferred ownership of 2 objects from the museum's permanent collection to Nepal. The upper section of a frieze torana from the 17th century, and a lower part of a wooden 4-window decoration showing a garland bearing apsara, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, from the 14th century. The apsara was returned to Intumbaha in Nepal, and that resulted in a partnership with the museum to help create the opening of the Intumbaha Museum in Nepal. So that was an example also, a repatriation, creating a new cultural institution and a real partnership. In December 2023, the Rubin returned a large 16th century gilt bronze mask of the deity Bhairava to Nepal, after receiving new evidence from law enforcement as well, concerning its provenance. when we received this evidence, we immediately, in response to these claims, we immediately put this object under review by our own investigators, and also hired independent researchers to even go on site to continue the investigation. And we were convinced that, this object had left Nepal in an unlawful way. So there was a return ceremony in the office of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and the Consul General of Nepal received this object on behalf of the government of Nepal. So these were two instances where, we did repatriate cultural objects to both of them were to Nepal.
Thank you.
And of course, as a global museum, we continue this practice of repatriation, research of provenance and repatriation.
Nice. Thank you, Marilena. This was very It's good to know what other museums do and also what others can follow your example, maybe, yeah? And I will give now the floor to Milette Geifman. We all know Milette because of her courses, particularly the famous course Art and Myth in Greek Antiquity, who attracts so many students, and all students praise her for her engaging teaching. And then Costas Arkolakis, professor in economics, also director of Hellenic Studies. Yeah, ladies first, maybe.
Okay. So this was so eye-opening. I hope, you could see the crowd. Obviously, this topic is so hot, and I actually want to open up the discussion for our group here, rather than just give some observations, but more as things for us to discuss together and hearing your perspectives. But first, there's something about the Parthenon in particular that is unique in the context of repatriation. I was really pleased that you mentioned the Louvre Gallery, which is hardly ever discussed, Professor Stampolidis. But there are also other museums, right? Not just isn't there the Copenhagen slabs?
Well, there is a small piece with two heads.
Right. So there is a sense that every country, everyone wants a piece of the Parthenon. Would you agree with that?
I would say that Parthenon is not Corpus Christi divided and donated here and there. Parthenon is a monument which is actually 2,500 years old, and the actual monument is there. This is the important thing. We are not talking about return or repatriation. We are talking about reunification. If the body of the monument wants back its members, if I cut your fingers, your legs, or your hands, don't you want them back? We are not talking about a piece of art, a painting or a statue or whatever. And Greece, as far as I know, has never claimed things except those after 1920 convention of the UNESCO, which is something else. And we are talking also about, we are not talking about ownership, because there was never an official permission to take them and destroy the monument. It was not the pieces fallen down by the Morosini bombardment in 1687 that were taken out. But as you have seen, he was destroying the monument to abduct, actually, the beauty. It is, in a way, I would say, it needs psychological analysis. Because, be careful, because Lusgieri from the British side and Fauvel from the French side, both of them were good artists. And though they dare to put their hands and take and abduct the beauty, what they could never have as artists. They wanted to possess it. This is something else. It needs Freud's or other psychological analysis. Second, as I told you, the Elgin, in quotation mark, the Parthenon Marbles were to decorate his house. The then British government, in the beginning of the 19th century, has never given him a permission to do so. Neither has done the British Museum. He got the pieces by bribing the voivoda and the authorities, the Ottoman authorities in Athens. He had not any permission, neither from the Sultan nor from the British officials. So, only when his filthy rich wife divorced him, and only after he was bankrupt, he went to the British Museum to offer them, and he wanted 75,000 liras. They gave him only 35,000 liras, I mean pounds. And why was that? Because 80 parliament members voted for this against 30 parliament members of the British committee, that they said, no, we are not going to give our vote to this stealing. They said so. Can you understand? That means it is an illegal act of an individual, and the international law states that a state, a government, cannot support an illegal act of his citizens, even retrospectively. So, it's an illegal act. This is it. And on the other hand, what our colleagues here asked, the body of the Parthenon needs that. And the British people, as far as I know, and you have probably read, between 59 and 68%, they want them back. And even great newspapers like Londoner Times, Guardian, and so on, now they want them back. Only one newspaper, I will not name it, permit me to say, they say, this is because of the pride of the Greeks. No, the pride of the Greeks, if you like, is there, standing. We do not claim anything else, as far as I know, except the Parthenon marbles. Why is that? We don't want them for us. We want them for the humanity. This is the most important thing, to have the experience, because as I have shown to you, it's not only the perfection of the architectural details of the monument. It's not only the surrendering of the soul to the aesthetics, as you have seen. It is also the symbol of all democracies, from the Athenian Periclean democracy up to today. If Athens is the mother of our civilization, of our Western civilization, if you like, Rome is the daughter, and all the other capitals in Europe or in the States or elsewhere in Australia are the grand-grandchildren of these democracies. And I ask you, in a world, a fragmented world, like ours today, with all the financial crisis, all the pandemics, the wars here and there, isn't it the time to reunite all these pieces as a symbol of our democracies? This is the question. It's not a question of pride or not. This is the symbol of democracy. This is the symbol of UNESCO as well. Where can you have this experience? Beneath the museum, I told you, there are houses of the 5th century, and under the shadows of these houses and streets, Sophocles, Aristotle, Socrates have passed through them, and also architects, sculptors, workers, not only Athenian citizens, but also foreigners of that time, and even slaves. So we have the human sector, if you like, beneath this museum, and the divine on the 3rd floor. Where can you have this experience? We are not asking, let's say, the Aphrodite of Milo or whatever, because I think, in a way, this is my personal belief, these are good ambassadors, very good ambassadors in the Metropolitan, in Copenhagen, or in Brazil, or wherever. But Parthenon is the Parthenon. We are not talking about decolonization, because Greece was never a colony of the great British Empire. We are not talking about that. We are talking about members of a body that they should go be back and reunificated. This is it.
Well, thank you. I just want to add to, because you mentioned we had already a conversation, and Professor Stampolidis shared with me this, and I thought this was very important for everyone to hear, the exceptional case for the Parthenon, and that it fits within a bigger picture about repatriation, and everything gets sort of lopped together, but actually we're looking at a very unique example with a symbolism. It's not just symbolism, meaning and enduring, especially nowadays. I think it really resonates. And also that when we use the term decolonizing, it sort of loses its meaning if we forget the specifics of the history of each and every case. That's why the kind of work that we heard from our two colleagues here from these various collections is extremely important. And in certain cases, as the Venus de Milo, it can maybe stay in another. So the idea that art can travel and can be shared is not foreign to the idea of the reunification of the marbles of the Parthenon. But I heard many times that, oh my God, if they return, then all of the global museums will be gone. No.
This is not
that our own museum experiences will be shattered if we lose the elegant. That was the ongoing argument one would hear often.
Millet, if I can add,
yes.
This is very important for the people to know that Greece has offered to the British Museum, when within the Duveen Gallery, when they are coming back to Greece, or in the new West Wing that is going to be built in about 5-10 years from now, that we are willing for the classical period to have in a regular basis, if you like, every 5 years, every 4 years, to have pieces from Greece that will belong to the British Museum, and that this room will never be empty. This is also a solution.
Right.
You don't mean belong, you mean on loan.
On loan, of course, on loan, yeah.
Yes.
I said loan.
See, I'm the business person.
No, I said loan. We are not talking here about belongings. We are talking about reunification.
That's really important. Thank you. Yeah, Costas.
No, actually,
Business,
that
yeah.
was what my main question I wanted to ask, because from the description that you gave for how the museums repatriate, it changed my mind of how I'm thinking of museum. The museum for me used to be something static, where you have, some exhibits and people see them, but it seems there's a dynamic kind of way of thinking about it, where you have to repatriate some stuff all the time, but then you bring new stuff through your research, right? But my question here in this, and referring to Professor Stampolidis' kind of proposal, can the British Museum afford to be so dynamic? Because if they give it the most important exhibit they have, I mean the most famous perhaps, or one of the most famous, how can they how can they keep on their model? So we need to give them a good deal in a sense.
No. We are not going to go further with such a discussion, because the problem is we are not talking about a piece of art, as I have said. We are talking about reunification, first of all. Second, if you want to speak philosophically, because we are talking about ancient Greece, number one is not the beginning if there is no 2, 3, 4 following. It's beginning and end. This is the Parthenon case. Finished. Because in any case, the important thing with the Parthenon marbles or sculptures, if you like, is they belong to the humanity, as I have put it, where the monument stands. We are not going to have the pieces, let's say, it's not an ownership the way we think today. No, it is the actual ancestor democracy, if you like. And that's the symbol of it, that has to be in its integrity. It's not a piece of art. This is the important thing. Do not the, if I'm not mistaken, I have to say that I think pieces either in Marseille or in the Louvre, pieces of a statue that were found in Greece, they went to the Louvre back. We gave them to, because of the integrity of the statue. This is what we are asking for, the humanity. And I have so many good friends in Great Britain, and I ask them sometimes, the only way to solve this problem, if you like, is a noble act. Return them to be reunified together. It's a noble act. Because sometimes I hear, yes, but these are, as you have said, the history of the British Museum. The British Museum that has nothing British in it. There are so many British things in Yale. Anyway, I'm not talking about that. The thing is that, how can I say, when they fixed and they have renewed the museum in 1962, then they voted an act in 1963 that nothing is going to go out. So there is a ping pong there. When the governments are talking about, because of political or other reasons, they say, yes, it's not our cup of tea. You have to discuss it with the museum. And when we go to the museum, they say, let's talk again with the government. It's not giving a good picture, if you like, a good image to the British friends. I say to them, if you accept, you do something noble that everybody will discuss in the globe, it has nothing to do with this mask or this painting, this or any other artifact. We are talking about the Parthenon and the body that needs its members back. It's not the same cases.
Maybe a question from the audience, from the students. Would you like to tell us your name?
Yes, my name is Jasmine Sahu. You might be able to tell from my accent. I'm a PhD student here,
Okay.
but you might be able to tell from my accent that I am British. I'll just stand to the side.
Yes.
Yes. So, one, I would say I've been to Athens and to the Acropolis Museum, and I remember being very sort of not having a strong opinion about the Parthenon Marbles until I went to the Acropolis Museum and seeing the amazing gallery there, and just the whole experience of being there was the thing beyond anything else that convinced me, at least, that they absolutely need to return to Greece, because it's just, I don't think there's any good argument to keep them in England in terms of understanding this monument and how all of its parts work together. The one thing though that I would raise, although I fully accept what you're saying about this particular object, this particular question, and about what it means to reunify these objects, I do think we have to grapple with the legacies of colonialism when it comes to the British Museum and why there is the problem of being able to do that. And this exact sort of this bind between the government and the museum that exists, it's there as a block, and it's there to protect that, and all of that protection is a lot to do with Britain's ability to reckon with imperial history, which is still an ongoing and major problem, I think, in British society, of being able to know what to do with what has been our past, what our societies have done for very many hundreds of years, and that all of those things that we are benefiting from in our museum that come from that. So I think it would be very interesting to talk both in terms of the Parthenon marbles, but also other objects as well, about dealing with the politics and dealing with those legacies, and how we can move past things that may be problems that are within the societies that hold these objects. How can we encourage those conversations so it moves forward?
Well, as I have said, Greece was never a colony.
Yes.
End, period, finished. What the colonization and decolonization problem is concerned is another matter. It's a completely different matter. And many times I hear from my good friends, not only from the British Museum, but also the Society and the BBC and so on, and they say, yes, but this is the history of our museum for 200 years. And I say, can you compare your, well, Elgin stealing, not yours, with 2,500 years of history? Cannot be compared.
Yes. Yes.
This is out of the question.
But as an institution, it's entwined with the politics of imperialism. So as much as I completely agree with you that thinking
Yes, I
about
know.
the Parthenon marbles, it's not from a colony, it's not from that same thing, but it is interwound with the same project that the museum itself was created to promote, which is about an idea of where Britain is within a global history, and that, yeah.
Yeah, but then here's the argument that we want to disentangle this, that the
Yeah.
Greek case is not related with this colonialism argument, yeah? This is here another argument of this position. Somebody else, yes, Arthur, oh, yes, and George, you had a quick.
Right.
Greg, yeah. First, okay, you go first.
Thank you. Again, thank you very much. I guess an observation and then a question. I think you touched on the beauty of the Acropolis Museum. Many of us have had the opportunity to be there. It's otherworldly, and it transports us back thousands of years. And the observation is that what I used to hear for many years, that one of the justifications of the British Museum was that Greece really wasn't in a position to be able to properly preserve this treasure of humanity. It had pollution, it had graffiti, it was in disarray, and I think that's been addressed. So that's my comment. My question is, I thought maybe that I would hear, I'm an attorney, I thought maybe I would hear an update of where this stands on the legal forum, and maybe it's beyond the scope of today, and if so, I apologize. And I still was edified. And I'm wondering about the court of public opinion. And I know there's a groundswell. And I'm hearing from representatives of other similar institutions. And I'm wondering, is there a worldwide symposium of these tremendous museums? And if so, have they taken a unified position in support of the return of the Parthenon marbles?
Well,
UNESCO.
I can tell you that it has been solved by the decision of the UNESCO. And there it says it's not only right, but it's also ethical. This is the problem. Legal or not legal is has nothing to do with the Parthenon, because there is no question in a legal level, because there is no firman's, sultan's firman or official permission to be taken away. There is nothing there. It is mostly, how can I say, we are looking wrong if we are going to have a solution through legal procedure.
So
It is the same thing with the Fagan fragment. A state, Italy, has given it back because intelligent people accept.
Oh, God.
Accept. This is how I cannot understand what a legal procedure could bring to our question.
So we're in a place now where our leader says that he's not sure he's going to pay any attention to what the courts say. And the bottom line is, in America, how do you enforce things? So if we have a legal ruling from UNESCO and other bodies, the Hague Convention and World Crimes, if they don't have any teeth to enforce it, what does it do? So I come back to the court of public opinion.
Well, if I may add here, permit me to read a quotation by a British person who was present during the dilapidation of the Parthenon marbles. He says, "From this frenzy stealing the beauty and dividing the Parthenon, I will keep one phrase. The Athenian temples will thus be destroyed for the sake of their ornaments, their beauty, which instead of remaining in their original places as the return of the peace that was mutually agreed by that time, they are now under the strongest countries. Is it ethical? What? legal procedure has to do with that? Byron, the parliament, the 30 members of the parliament of the then British government, they were saying that this is a stealing. How can you defend it in a legal procedure? You will not say that it was a stealing? And what do you teach in quotation marks in a global museum? Stealing? Are you going to teach that to the young generations? But again, I'm not against or I don't want myself the return of all these wonderful pieces coming either from Greece, Rome, or wherever. Because these are, as I have said, good ambassadors of our culture. We are not talking about that. We are talking about a symbol. The symbol must be reunited, must be in its integrity. We know how lawyers and judges are acting then and now.
I have a question from Arthur Nacht, and yes, the last, and then we can stay. We have the room for 1 more hour, but formally, officially, we will conclude the panel with the question by Arthur. This will be your last question that will be, video recorded. Be careful the question.
Well, thank you very much. So the government in England has changed in the last year and a half. The government has changed from a conservative government to Labour. When you say that the issue keeps bouncing back and forth between the government and the museum itself, do you think under a Labour government, Keir Starmer, that there's a greater or a lesser chance that the government could apply whatever pressure it can upon the museum?
No, I think that Osborne, the president of the British Museum, was, as far as I know from the newspapers, was willing to go forth and with the new director, Nikolaos Chr, they were most probably wanted to give them back. But to give them back, how they can do it when they go to the custom office and then the government says, yes, but the Act of 1963, you cannot take them away. What is that?
Okay, but the Labour government has a very big majority at the moment in Commons. Couldn't they pass a new law to do that?
I hope, look, there were some people frequenting the last 3-4 months in Athens from the British, not from the British government, but from the Labour Party, let's say. And they were informed of giving them back. I don't want to say names.
There was legislation in the UK created around the restitution of Nazi looted art that went around the British Library Act, the British Museum Act, the V&A Act, et cetera, that does allow them in those exceptional circumstances to deaccession and return.
Yes.
So one might hope, but
as
there
they
are
have
those
done
tools.
with the Aborigines
Right.
in New Zealand and so on. Yes,
Right,
of course.
yeah.
We know
Yeah.
these cases.
Right.
We do know, but even though, again, we are talking about a special case, as Millet has
Right.
already pointed out.
Thank you. I would like to thank you all. Thank you, the panelists. Thank you.